Hey, it's Mrs. Hopkins 73 here again, doing my recap podcast, Echo on the Beach. Today we are recapping episode 8. We're calling it, Who's Yo Daddy? So here's the continuation of the drama. So Susan says, "You don't understand." And Jimmy is eavesdropping. And Daniel, he's saying, No, Susan, I'm not an idiot. I checked the dates. I'm Jimmy's father." And then Mark laughs. Like the jerk he is, yeah. Daniel, "What do you find so funny about this, Mark?" Mark, "You, look at you, all tortured and angry. It's your favorite pose." Susan, "Mark, please." Mark, "Always the martyr, aren't you, Dan?" And then he goes on to say some sacrilegious stuff here that I won't repeat. Daniel, "How could you do this? How could you keep this from me? My own son." Susan, "Daniel." Mark continues laughing. Daniel, fed up with Mark's attitude, grabs Mark by the shirt and knocks him back into the wall. Daniel, pointing to Mark, You must have known." Mark, "Listen to me, and I'll take it very slowly so you don't miss anything. Jimmy is my son. Understand? Mine." Then he points at Susan, who's close by. "I don't know what weird fantasy you've concocted for yourself, and frankly, I don't care. But I can assure you, that boy is 100% pen warden. Chip off the old block." Daniel, "I don't believe you." Okay, so on to the next scene. Narinda is cleaning up the big mess to try to keep her job at the bar. Charlie offers to help. He wants Narinda to spell out his faults. She rails on him. She also sort of comes clean of her crush on him. Mark continues on. "What I don't get, see, is do you honestly think I would spend 18 years of my life bringing up your bastard child? Seriously?" Daniel, "How do I know you're not lying?" Mark, "What do you want? Proof?" Susan, to Daniel, "You should leave." Daniel, "No, not until I get the truth." Mark, turning around, nursing his drink, looking at Susan. "Do you hear that, Suze? He wants the truth. Think he's ready for that? The truth? The whole truth?" Susan cuts him off. "Don't, please." And then to Daniel, she says, "He's right. Jimmy is Mark's son." Then she starts pointing at Mark. "You and I we could never had, we never had." Her voice breaks. "Just go, just." Mark hands her a tissue. "It's a bit messy, well, kind of get the gist, don't you?" Susan is crying. Daniel is heading for the door. Mark, "Don't slam the door on the way out." Daniel, he turns around. "Proof." Susan and Mark turn to face him. Mark, "What?" Daniel, "You're right. What you said. I want proof." Mark, "Saying I'm lying?" Daniel, "What if I am? Prove me wrong." Mark, grinning, "That would be my pleasure." These people need a paternity test on the Maury Show. Okay, next scene. Bray is hard at work fixing something at a table in the diner. Jackie pops in. It's about bookkeeping. That's what he's doing on his computer. They flirt over a beer. Charlie interrupts and helps himself to a cold one. Next scene, next place. Grace goes to the pub looking for Jimmy and Charlie. Narinda lets it slip that Jimmy and Abby might be rendezvousing. At, wait for it, the beach hut, maybe. Grace figures out what happens there. It's a notorious secret shag place. Okay, next thing. Jimmy is brooding quietly alone at the docks. Meanwhile, Abby is making the beach hut more romantic, bringing a ton of candles and pillows. She sends Jimmy a suggestive selfie. Charlie is now drunk and playing a fool. Bray is disappointed that Jackie leaves too, saying Ian would be waiting for her. Jimmy shows up to the beach hut finally, and Abby is napping after drinking half a bottle of wine. She wakes up and smiles at him, asking if he's playing hard to get. Jimmy says he's been out on his bike thinking of them. He confesses that he's decided they're too different, and her virginal style is too lame for him. This is basically his excuse. He didn't actually say that, but that's what it feels like. He's not admitting to her that he thinks they're half siblings. Abby is being dumped here by Jimmy. Abby begins crying hysterically, and Jimmy leaves her there in the beach hut. Horrible. Charlie appears waddling on the beach. We know he's a bit drunk. He spots Jimmy leaving in the distance, and he walks near the hut when he hears Abby bawling. He goes in and consoles her. They end up hooking up. Grace walks near the beach too, but ducks into a shop to hide from Jimmy. He's on his motorbike. She notices he looked upset. This is why she goes to investigate the beach hut. Jimmy slams his family's door. Susan and Mark are still in the living room / dining room and are still reeling. Mark is sitting now at the sofa. Jimmy, I want a word with you. Susan, we need to talk. Jimmy, oh, I know all right. I was here earlier when Dan was here. I heard. Mark, what did you hear? Jimmy, what do you think I heard, Dad? Susan, no, you don't understand. He got it wrong. He made a mistake. Oh, so that's what I am, huh? A mistake? Susan, no, I mean, he's not your father. Mark, what do you actually think that? He laughs. That's a lame laugh. Jimmy turns to his mother, Susan. Jimmy, but the arguing? I heard what you said. Susan, he got it wrong. Jimmy looks deflated, so now he's feeling worse for hurting Abby's feelings. Jimmy, so it's not true? Mark, of course it's not true. Susan, Dan got confused. Jimmy, because of what you were doing with them? If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be in this mess. Mark, well, I'm glad someone's finally taking my side in all of this. Susan, Mark, this isn't about you. Mark, isn't it? Oh, hang on. My wife's ex comes around my house and claims paternity of my son. Let me think. Of course it's about me. Susan wastes no time on that jerk husband and consoles her son. Susan, Jimmy, I'm so sorry you had to be dragged through all of this, but Dan is not your father. I promise you. Mark, but if for any reason, heaven knows why, you might be a bit reluctant to trust your mother on these matters, I've arranged for a test. Tomorrow morning, so I'll have proof. Scientific proof. Then Merritt can crawl back into his box once and for all. Jimmy, upset. Unbelievable. Susan, oh, Jimmy, He walks away. Susan tries to keep him close. Mark says, "Leave him. Let him calm down." Next scene. Grace goes over to peek inside the beach hut and finds Charlie and Abby in the middle of a tryst. She watches and grins. Oh boy, she's a voyeur. Mark waits for Susan to leave the room to call his mistress Angela. Says he's changed his mind. He wants to see her tomorrow. He also asks her to wear that thing, which can mean lingerie he likes, or maybe something a bit kinkier. Gosh. Angela hangs up the phone with the Cheshire Cat smile. Meanwhile, Susan is in her room, starting to cry again. Daniel is shrugging with a giant mopey face in his empty diner. Jimmy is up in his bed, obviously upset. Cut to the beach house once more. Bliss on Charlie's face, but Abby will start her regret era. The next morning, we find the Penn Warden parents and Jimmy and Daniel Merrick getting their paternity test visit. And that's the end of episode 8. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe, hit that notification bell, and come back to see me. Yeah, and leave a comment. Tell me how much you liked it. Tell me if you want to hear more. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing after this one because there's 12 episodes and that was number 8. So thanks very much for watching and or listening, and see you next time. Bye. And bloopers. It's a notorious secret shag place.